Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lindsay, a member of the CK12 team, and my colleague Katie and I will be running today's webinar, FlexBooks 101. We are so glad that you have joined us today.
Yes, thank you to everyone who joined us today. I'm excited to be one of your presenters as we discuss the many ways you can customize CK12 FlexBooks to fit your individual needs. Before we get into today's content, I'd like to go over a few logistics about the Zoom webinar platform to make sure everyone is comfortable using the different windows. You should see two different options on your Zoom screen, one for Q&A and one for chat. During today's presentation, whenever you have a question about CK12, please post it in the Q&A window. We will pause for a Q&A session after different topics within this session to address any questions that have been submitted. The chat window is a place for a community conversation. We'd love for you all to introduce yourselves. If you're an educator, feel free to share your state or country, your district, or subject you teach. Just make sure in the chat window that you are sending any general posts to all panelists and attendees, and not just to CK12 or the panelists. Also, while we don't anticipate any technical issues during our broadcast, if you are having any trouble with your video or your sound, please let us know in the Q&A or chat window. So, before we get started today, let's find out a bit more about you and your interest in FlexBooks. You'll see a poll here in a few seconds that will prompt you to respond to a short question. So the question is, have you used and or customized a CK12 FlexBook? Please let us know if you have yet to use them, if you've used them without customizing them, if you've customized FlexBooks, or you've even built a FlexBook from scratch. So I'll pause for a few seconds to let you finish answering this poll. And note that if you've used and customized or built FlexBooks, you're welcome to select more than one answer. So it looks like we have about 85% of you have answered the poll. I'll give you another few seconds just to wrap up. And okay, I think with that, let's end this and then we'll share your results. So it looks like the majority of you guys haven't used FlexBooks at all. So this is the perfect session for you because we are going to tell you all about the basics of FlexBooks. And for those of you that have started to use them, it's also great because we'll show you hopefully some extra pieces that you might not know already. So I think with that, I'm going to pass this over to Lindsay and she's going to take off.
Yeah, awesome. That looks great, guys. I'm glad that so many of you have joined us today for your various reasons, and we're gonna get you all going with FlexBooks. So today's core content, here's what we plan on covering in this webinar. Why choose a CK12 FlexBook? Why should you guys choose a customizable and shareable content? Why that's so important in the teaching profession today. We'll talk about finding a FlexBook and some general CK12 content. I think it's helpful to give you guys a reminder of how to navigate all the different resources CK12 offers, from our concepts to modalities and our CK12 or user-generated FlexBooks. Then we're going to talk about customizing a FlexBook. A few of you have said that you've customized a FlexBook before, but I think we're going to show you that it can be very simple by just making a few changes to our existing FlexBook. Or I'm going to show you how you can do some more editing. You can delete, reorder, add, upload content. And we're also talking about some best practices for working collaboratively with our books, for those of you who are in a school or district looking at adopting FlexBooks. And then we'll talk about how to publish or share your FlexBook to make sure that you can get it in the hands of your colleagues or students. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that.
So by the end of this session, you should be able to do the following. You'll be able to find a FlexBook to customize, start a new FlexBook from scratch. You could customize a FlexBook and add chapters and sections, change or add chapter descriptions, reorder chapters, delete chapters, make some basic edits, and then publish and share your FlexBook, as well as understanding the best practices when you collaborate, and maybe some ideas for how to use this with your students.
that's probably plenty to cover for today. We do run an advanced FlexBook editing session sometimes during the school year and certainly over the summer. And these are the types of things that we cover more in depth in an advanced FlexBook session, which would be some specifics about images, the difference with like figure and inline images, maybe a few more technical things relating to embedding video and other multimedia content. That's where we talk a lot about the CK12 math editor and LaTeX coding, talk about ways to link to CK12's interactives, headers, subheaders, tables, element boxes. A lot of this hopefully will be fairly intuitive, that I'm going to show you enough today that you'll be able to experiment with some of these things on your own. But just know, for kind of time's sake, to move you guys through FlexBooks 101 today, we're going to leave most of these for the advanced FlexBook editing session. But don't worry, if you have any specific questions about these, we always stay on at the end of our webinar. If you've got questions that maybe don't apply to, you think, most people on the webinar, we'll stay on after and answer any of these questions that you might have for us. So before we talk specifically about FlexBooks, I think it's important for you guys to understand the mission of CK12. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving student learning by increasing access to educational materials through our FlexBook platform and through our concept-based modalities. And I just said that we are a nonprofit, but we're a non-revenue nonprofit. Everything on CK12 is completely free. You're not going to see any advertisements. You're not going to hit a paywall. Due to the generous funding of a family foundation, CK12 has been thriving since 2007, and we're going to continue to make an impact around the world with this gift of free, quality educational resources. And to give you an idea of this global usage, here are some numbers that have probably gone up since this slide was made, but we have about 38,000 schools that we know of who are using CK12. There are over 167,000 FlexBooks on our site. So that's what I'm excited to show you today, is how to use CK12 books, and then how to find some of these other books that users around the globe have created. Over 46 million users, 228,000 modalities. And I also like this one. There's been 167 million questions answered on our system, which that's a lot of questions that we're asking and students are answering. All very exciting.
So the first question is, why choose a FlexBook? What makes us different from other content providers or platforms? You have a choice when choosing how to deliver content to your students. You could use a traditional textbook, one that costs a fortune, weighs 10 pounds, is outdated from the minute it's on your shelves, is written for a state different from yours, and one that never follows the sequence of how you teach your subject. But many of you are here today because you or your school or district have already decided that the traditional publisher model is outdated and just too costly, as more and more schools are becoming budget conscious. So then you're faced with another choice: how to replace those textbooks and still have a quality curriculum to give your students. Many districts are beginning to use open resources as their curriculum, but it's a time-consuming process to vet the materials, organize them, and figure out how to deliver them to your students. This is where CK12's FlexBook platform comes in as the best way to get quality, customized content in the hands of students.
Another major advantage to CK12's customizable content and interactive books is that they can be accessed anywhere, anytime, and on any device. You have the power to read the entire collection of CK12 FlexBooks on any personal device. We're platform agnostic. You can do it on Android, you can do it on iPhone, you can do it on a Chromebook, a MacBook, whatever works for you. We also make the content available without consistent connectivity. So we have a Chrome offline reader, and we also have an app. We want you to go to the app, the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, and download our app. And you have the ability to click the offline reader on any of our FlexBook pages, and you can access all of our reading material on any device, even without the internet.
So just a reminder that all of our resources on CK12 are free. So while we don't charge for the content, you can still rest assured that our FlexBooks are of the highest quality. To write our FlexBooks, we follow a model much like those of the traditional publishers. Our content has been developed by over 100 PhDs, professors, teachers, authors, NASA scientists, and other subject matter and domain experts over the past 10 years. You can see a list of our authors on the Meet the Team page on CK12. And while we are like traditional publishers in the creation of our content, one of the benefits of using a FlexBook is the ability to customize with interactive modalities, with videos, with resources you curate from other sources, all of these bringing your content to life. Another thing you can't do with a textbook is translate it into another language. You can with CK12's FlexBooks. We have some Spanish editions of our FlexBooks built in on our site, but with the Google Translate option at the bottom of the screen, you have the ability to change any of our core reading content into almost any language. One of the few concerns I've heard about digital textbooks is that students lose out on writing in the margins or highlighting in the book. Our FlexBooks allow students to use highlighters right on their screen and take any notes that will be available on their accounts.
Okay, I think now is a good time to show a couple of minutes of video footage highlighting some of our FlexBook users in Utah, Texas, Tennessee, and Idaho. You're also going to get a glimpse of our executive director and co-founder, Neeru Khosla, who started CK12 back in 2007 to radically change the old textbook model.
I love learning, and I actually really love books. But the problem with textbooks is that they are actually very limiting format, and not every child can learn from that. Textbooks are created to be average, so you cover almost every kind of student. The problem is that that doesn't work for every student. That's why we created FlexBooks. These are textbooks that are current, customizable, and of course, free.
We can embed multimedia components to make it more engaging for our students, to make it more relevant for our students, so that they're no longer using a static textbook, but one that's dynamic and rigorous and high quality and easily updated. Teachers can go and find a textbook that meets their needs, and they can constantly revise and edit as they go along.
We would be flat as teachers if we weren't always asking ourselves, what's in the students' best interest? What's going to be down the tunnel for them? Down the tunnel for them is less and less printed textbooks and more digital resources. And I'm not preparing them for their futures if I'm not learning how to use those resources as well.
I didn't realize that something this simple as online textbooks could change the way that I teach that much. But it's been pretty much a door that has opened that I can't close anymore.
CK12 actually meets and exceeds the standards that are required by our curriculum, our state and district curriculum.
If I were speaking to someone that was considering the CK12, I would say don't hesitate because of just the savings and just the practicality of it, but the current information and the ease of use with our students who are engaged with technology. There's just nothing else out there like it.
So that seems like a great place to stop and field a couple of questions that we've gotten. The first one that came in was asking if this would be available after today's webinar. We always post our recordings of our webinars on our webinars page, so you will be able to find this up there with the rest of them, usually about 24 hours after a particular webinar. So check that out tomorrow if you want to refer back to this one. And then we had a couple other questions. One came in before this video that asked, are there other school districts in addition to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that use CK12 in lieu of standard typical textbooks? So a couple of different ones were featured in that video, but there's definitely a number of them that use them, and Lindsay will show you some of that as she navigates across our site today. And similarly, we had a question about FlexBooks for AP Science classes. So anything that we don't have ourselves, you can often find using the schools page or through search. And so just keep an eye out for that as she continues to demo. And if we don't hit your question specifically in that demo, definitely ask us again and we'll make sure to follow up from there. So I think with that, it looks like our questions that are open have been answered. Feel free to keep putting them in that Q&A window as we continue. And one just came in there. It said, is that video available online? The video that is there will be within the webinars part. And then we also have our testimonials page. So definitely check out a lot of those pieces as we go. So with that, I'm going to transfer this over to Lindsay and let her show you sharing resources.
Okay, I'm going to get out of this keynote presentation and I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to jump to the K12 homepage, and I'm going to show you how to start navigating some of our resources. So I know you guys are here. This is FlexBooks 101, and we're going to talk plenty of FlexBooks, but I think it's important, especially since some of you said that you were new to our site, to just make sure that we've all had an orientation to where to find our different resources and a little bit of a reminder about how we are a concept-based learning organization, and we've broken big subjects down into bite-sized concepts, and I want you to be able to find those concepts and all of the modalities that go with it. So as you can see, this is our homepage at ck12.org. If you all haven't created an account yet, I'm signed in to a teacher account here, but if you haven't created one, please do at some point. Log in, create an account, and you will arrive at this homepage. Often after you've started to use this page, CK12 is going to know which subjects you gravitate to more often. So you might occasionally have to flip your view to show all subjects. And you can see that we offer a variety of content. Most of what we offer would fall under the STEM umbrella, but we do have some English content, and we have some other subjects under more. We have some engineering, astronomy, history, health. So this is where you can kind of find all of our subjects. And then as you scroll down, you'll see some other things on the teacher page. And these explore circles, I think, are really handy for you guys to know, and hopefully something that you're going to do later on after this webinar is select some of these and view our simulations, our PLICs, which are small interactives for students to use, our adaptive practice system, which is an amazing adaptive system to personalized learning, and then a schools page that I'm going to show you. So I kind of like these circles and these branches up here for navigating content. Also, you see that we have a search bar up here. I mean, our goal at CK12 is we would love for your students sitting in your math and science classes to, instead of going to Google and typing in who knows what and getting, who knows what coming up on their screen, we would love for students to look for academic information here in our search bar. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. And I'm going to search for, let's say, water cycle up here in our search bar. And I'm going to get my search results here. And you can see that we've got a lot of information on our site that relates to the water cycle. So what you should know is over on the left-hand side, we have different ways to filter the content. You can go by grades. Probably some more useful ways of looking at our content is deciding if you want what we call a read, which is, text, which is like a lesson. We have real world activities. We have videos, the PLICs I just referenced. So anytime you select one of these filters, it's going to narrow down. So now I'm just looking at videos on CK12 on the water cycle. So you might look at those filters. You'll notice up here too that we have different tabs. Currently, I'm looking at CK12 content, either content that we have created or content that our team has curated and vetted. If I switch over to the community contributed tab, you'll see other people's names here. We've got some stuff from Idaho. I'm talking a lot about Idaho already. We've got different teachers, I'm guessing, names or curriculum developers, but people who have come to our site and they have uploaded or updated or customized information. We keep that on a separate tab just so you guys can see what CK12 has developed and curated and what our users are contributing. When you search, you can also see what's in your library. I don't know if I have anything. Oh, I do. And in my own personal library resources that I've worked on and customized, you find that on the My Library tab. So that's what a search results page looks like. When I searched for the water cycle, you guys saw that this is the highlighted box that says concept here. It's a different color. You can see some of our modalities, our different ways of learning here in this box, our reads, our clicks, our video. I encourage you guys, anytime you see this box, to click on it. This is where you're gonna go to our concept page. And how amazing is this? So if I'm a teacher, again, maybe you're using our book, maybe you're not using our book, but tomorrow, you guys could go back to your classroom, and if your topic, if your subject that you're working on is the water cycle, look at the resources we have available for you as teachers and for the students to learn. You see on this page, we have reads, our clicks, we have videos where you can see when we have additional resources here. We've got one more video. We have activities, study aids, lesson plans, practice, real world, again, more real world activities. We believe in some choice. We think students all like to learn different ways. And this is a way that you can teach kids the same concept, but through different modalities, different ways of learning. So I think you guys are really going to want to check out our concept pages. And then all of these, clicks, videos, activities, they all integrate with our FlexBooks in different ways. So, okay, I'm gonna go back to the home page here, which you can always do by clicking on the CK12 icon. And now I'm gonna go back to that landing page that I just talked about. So I searched for content in the search bar up here. But now if I want to go down to my different branches, let's say I want to look at physics. I can also find concepts here in physics. I am on the concepts tab, and we have bucketed different concepts under bigger topics here. And so I can also select, let's say, Newton's second law. And this is going to take me directly to that same concept page that I was just going to show you. So more CK12 content, more different modalities, the community content tab, like in our search results, would show us if any community members have uploaded their own content here. And now I'm back to CK12 content. All right, going back to the home page. Again, just quickly, those circles that I showed you earlier, if I were to click on any of these, we have over 120 simulations. We have physics simulations, and our chemistry simulations are in beta mode, but these are whole animated environments where they have an introductory problem and then a sandbox for students to experiment with a certain concept. We can go back to the circles again, and our PLICs. These are play, learn, interact, explore. Shorter, more bite-sized concepts. Students manipulate a variable and they answer some questions. That's pretty powerful. And yeah, so hopefully we're gonna pause for questions here in a little bit, but if you hadn't explored these various areas of CK12, I encourage you to look by branch, look at our search bar, and come down here and see what these different resources on CK12 do. Okay, but you guys are here for FlexBooks. So I just showed you a variety of ways that you can get at FlexBooks, but let's look at this. So I'm gonna go by branches here, and I'm gonna look at algebra. When I click on algebra, we were looking at all of our bite-sized concepts, but you see over here, there's a FlexBook textbooks tab. So when I flip over to the FlexBooks textbooks, now instead of viewing our individual concepts, I'm now looking at CK12's FlexBooks. You'll see that algebra, there's a bunch of different offerings. Some are at different levels. Like here, you'll see a CK12 Algebra Basic book. You'll see some different grades. And one thing that I want you to notice is here we have a Math Concepts grade 7 book. And here we have just a Math grade 7 book. And so when we started out in 2007, we started with a kind of a more traditional FlexBook that would have several concepts, maybe 2 or 3 concepts included in one lesson. So these grade 7 books, any book that is not a concept collection is going to be a more traditional, perhaps model to what you're used to in your print books. What we're really excited about is we're excited about our concept collections, like this middle school math concept, where it breaks it down into these bite-sized concepts similar to the pages that I've been showing you with the different modalities. So be on the lookout for those different types of books. We also, a lot of our content has been translated into other languages. Here's a list of our Spanish books that we have for algebra. Katie showed you earlier that you can translate any of our content through Google, but these books have been translated by a human being, so the translation is pretty awesome here for these books. All those are filterable too. If you're wanting to check, you've got these filters: English, Spanish, all these different levels. I'm looking at the middle school books, but don't forget that you can navigate over here and you can see our high school books. So I'm hoping that you guys are getting a little more comfortable with how to find our content. These are CK12 books. They're ones that we've worked with, all of those people that we talked about earlier, domain experts, NASA scientists, people with PhDs. But going back to the homepage, it's important that you guys know that of those, 164,000 FlexBooks that have been made on our site, a lot of them have been created by individual teachers or schools or districts. So this schools icon here, this is an easy way, or ck12.org/schools, to see some of these books that other areas are created. So since I'm here in California, it defaulted to the location of California, but you guys are welcome to look at your own area and see some books that are around you. One district that we like to point to sometimes is El Paso School District in Texas. So I just flipped to Texas and I can scroll down and see some different districts. But El Paso has created they haven't just customized our CK12 books, but they've created a lot of their own books from scratch. And so you're gonna see some AP books, you're gonna see some, here's AP Government, AP European History, Sociology, World History. So if you're on this webinar looking for content that's outside of math or science, we have that on our site. You might just have to do some searching and look in our community contributed to find other areas who've been working on some of these books and some of this content. But that's exciting. That's all through the schools page. And we'll talk a little bit later about how you get on the schools page. Obviously, not all of the FlexBooks are on the schools page. There's a lot more districts in Texas that are using us that are on here. But these are the ones that have elected to publish their books on our site. Kind of a last thing that I think would be helpful before we start customizing a book is to talk about standards. And when you're logged in as a teacher, you have the standards button up at the top. And Common Core and Next Generation Science standards are hot topics these days. Common Core, this is a functionality that we've had for years on our site, the ability to quickly show you what concepts we have aligned to some of the standards. So if you're teaching a certain standard in geometry, you can click on what you're looking for, and we're going to tell you which CK12 concepts we think align to that subject. Okay. Same thing with NGSS. There's an NGSS tab here, and you can look at your different standards and see what we are aligning. Right now in 2018, we know that the push is on to not just align content to Common Core and to NGSS, and so our teams are working really hard to get you guys fully integrated Common Core and NGSS books. Right now, in the footer of our site, we show you our Common Core math books, just recently launched really in the last couple of months. We have these brand new books for Algebra 1 and for Geometry that are fully integrated Common Core books, they're also interactive. So we have embedded within each read that students are reading online interactives that they can manipulate right there on the spot. You're also going to find teacher guides that are really walkthroughs for the teachers, suggestions for how to teach the different activities in the different sections of these books. So if you're interested and if you're an algebra teacher or a geometry teacher, for sure check out our new books in Common Core. Our teams are working on the middle school books right now to be released as soon as we can get them in your hands. And then NGSS is also the big push. We have developers right now working on our NGSS books. So we're going to continue to notify you guys when these changes are coming, but that's kind of the next wave of FlexBooks that we are working on. So I think I'm going to take a breath here, and I'll ask Katie if there's anything kind of that navigation that you know she thinks I should add, and then what's going on in our Q&A and chat. Do we have some questions?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay, for showing that. One of the questions we just had that came in said, are there any Canadian districts that have customized content? And the answer to that is yes. We'll talk a little bit more later, but we run a summer teacher certification program for kind of using CK12, and we definitely had a number of teachers from Canada that were working on customizing books. So if you are from Canada and you're interested in getting those on our schools page, we can talk about how we might be able to pull that off for you. So let us know, but there are definitely teachers across Canada that have been using our stuff and customizing accordingly. We had some questions come in terms of kind of more specifics about that customization, which I'm going to hold off on and see if we can just answer in the course of this webinar as we move into customization. But a couple kind of side comments that I wanted to just cover was one about learning management system integration. We are integrated with a number of different learning management systems, including Google Classroom and Canvas and Schoology. And so we, you can find out more about that down in that footer where Lindsay showed you the link to the Common Core books. There's also a link for our tools and apps page, and you can find out more information there for those learning management systems. And then other topics like IT, computer science. We had a question about AP science. Definitely anything that you can't find in kind of CK12's core offerings, I recommend that you search through the schools page or just use the search feature on CK12. And we'll see if we can't kind of address that by all of the rest of the kind of resources that other users have customized and put in there. So I think with that, we're going to move on from here for a minute and we will see what we can do. So before we start diving into the detailed ways you can customize a book, I want to show you just how easy it can be to take one of our FlexBooks and get it into the hands of students. So as Lindsay has been showing you, the first thing that you'd want to do is pick a FlexBook, and you can do that through the branches of CK12, which we're now kind of renamed as subjects. So that's something that you'll see there, and all the different types for primarily math and science, and then some other random resources that have been donated to CK12. Within that, you'll find primarily middle school and high school books. So you'll see middle school science books, middle school math books. We even have elementary science books that you'll see on our site, and then as well as the high school books. And those are ones, the science and math, and then the upcoming CCSS and NGSS books for both of them. So you'll see those across there. So definitely continue to look at those and check them out. But if I click on any one of these, so this is an example of the Common Sense Composition book. Lindsay used to teach English at the high school level, and I used to teach literacy as well. So we definitely have kind of some interest in this area. But if I went into that book under the English options, all I would have to do on the left-hand side is click that Customize button. And the minute I do that, it takes me to a screen with the entire table of contents. And maybe I just put Lindsay's Common Sense Composition book so she could use this book with her students. And if that's all you wanted to do was just simply rename it, have your own personal version of this book, then you could start sharing that. So you could share this URL with your students. Right here it says revision 1 at the end of that URL. If you load it directly from your library, it wouldn't include that, or you could just remove that R1 at the end so that as you continue to update it, your students and other people that you share that URL with would have access to the most up-to-date content. If they used an old link, it would just tell them that they're outdated and they'd want to check out the newest version and link to that. So no worries there. But yeah, it's really as simple as just clicking Customize, putting your own name on it, and then you can share that URL if you do nothing else to use CK12's content. Now, all of the content, just kind of a note as you're thinking about customizing and doing this, all of our content is licensed under our Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial License, or CC BY-NC. This allows you to use but not sell and adapt our content as long as you continue to give the appropriate attribution. It also means that as you think about customizing content and adding in your own images, your media, etc., that you need to make sure you have the rights to use it within our platform.
Okay, so we are rapidly moving through this. Hopefully you guys aren't totally overwhelmed. Rather, you're intrigued and taking some notes about what you need to explore later. I am going to steal the screen back. And Katie just gave you the super quick version of how you could customize a FlexBook. If you just wanted to grab and go and give a whole FlexBook to your class tomorrow, do exactly what she just said. Press customize, give it a name, and you've got a URL. But I'm guessing that a lot of you are wanting to make some more revisions, because that's the exciting part about having a FlexBook, is to be able to add and delete content, to add your own images, your own videos, to make it specific to your local situation. So let me run through this for you, at a slower pace. I'm back on this home screen that you guys are getting pretty familiar with here. I'm gonna go, let's do this algebra example again. So I'm gonna click on algebra. And a reminder here that I need to flip over to my FlexBooks textbooks tab to see the book offerings. And we're going to look at the CK12 middle school math concepts for grade 7. So let me open up that book. All right, so when you look at one of our books, you're going to arrive at the table of contents page. And this is going to give you an overview of what's included in that book. All right. The big button over here on the left, I wish you guys could participate, and I'd ask you, what do I press? And you're all saying customize. I'm gonna press customize, and this is gonna get the whole process started here for me. So I pressed it. And the first thing I might wanna do is, you have the opportunity to call your book whatever you wanna call your book. I'm not feeling too creative, so I'm going to put demo for 2/15/18. It's really boring, I know. But you can call this book whatever you would like to call this book. It's now yours. You've pressed customize. It's going to your library. Okay? So beyond the renaming, down here in the table of contents, like we've had smart people put this book together, and we think that this is a pretty natural sequence for this book. But we're not in your district, we're not in your classroom, we don't know what you guys are teaching. So you have the ability here to take the table of contents and figure out what you want to reorder, what you want to delete, and what you want to add. Let's start by deleting. I'm going to pick on percents. We don't need to know how to use percents, so I'm going to take this X here. And when I click the X, it's going to ask me if I want to remove that section from the book. And I click remove, and that has now been deleted, and it just auto numbered, moved to the next thing up. I'm going to get rid of my class. We're not going to get to data and statistics, so I'm going to remove that. We're not going to get to probability. I'm going to remove that. So one of the first things you might want to do is, once you figure out what book you're starting with, I picked this CK12 math concepts book to start with. Once you pick the book you want to start with that most closely aligns to what you're wanting to teach, is mess around with this table of contents. Remove the things that don't apply to you. And then I can grab these handlebars and I can rearrange the chapters. I'm not a math teacher, so I doubt what I'm doing makes any sense. But you can reorder in any way that you like, okay? And these teal arrows here, they're going to show me what is within each of my chapters. And notice that they come with the same ability to remove, the same ability to drag and drop and reorder. So I'm doing something that hopefully a lot of you, like, your mouths are dropped. You're like, I can't do that with my textbook. You're stuck with your textbook, and kids are going from page 2 to page 257, and then you've only used a quarter of the book, during the school year, and kids have carried around the whole fat textbook the whole time. So Here, you truly get to align to your scope and sequence. So that was renaming, deleting, reordering, but adding content. I mean, you guys have your own materials that you're going to want to add to this book. We've just gotten you started. Over on add content, probably the most common things that you guys are going to want to do is you might add in your own chapter. I don't know what's missing from this book, but we're going to call it Lindsay's special chapter. I can add my own chapter. It's when I save it, it's going to show up at the bottom here as chapter 10. I can move it up, you know, something extra special like slot number 2. I can write my own modality, where this is a way to write in text and add it to your FlexBook as another section. I can also search CK12. So I'm in a Math 7 book, but you know, more and more when I'm out talking to teachers, if they're doing a lot of blending of different books. So if I wanted to steal a chapter from another book, I don't even know. Let's type in angles. I can search CK12 right here from my editor, and I can add in a section. Let's say I'm looking for, angles outside of a circle. That sounds perfect. I can add it to my FlexBook, and it has shown up here down in my book. And I can rearrange that to whatever section I would like. So you're already seeing, start with one of our books, delete, rearrange, and then add in your own content, okay? Let's look at what one of these sections actually looks like. So here's hoping addition and subtraction of phrases is something exciting. Addition and subtraction phrases as equations. All right. That title works for me, so I'm just going to press save. And this is what CK12 has put together for this particular section. It starts with an image. It's got some bikers on it, a little cycling team. It's got some different situations here, sample problems, examples. So your changes can be very small. Perhaps you're in a district where you need to start each section of your book with what the objective is, or an I can statement or something. I just selected in this text box and started typing, and now all of a sudden I'm adding to this book. Maybe I'm not a fan of the cycling picture and I've got a really cool picture of me on a bike. I can delete that photo, and using our toolbar here, which should be pretty intuitive, like what you guys have seen in Microsoft Word or Google. I can insert images by choosing a file. I'm scared to press that button, from my computer of something, and it would import right here. Okay, so I can add images. I can, do what you can in any other word editor of make things bold, italics, underlined. I can insert tables. I can use bullet points. I can use numbers. All of these things to customize a book. I can also, say I don't like a lot of these sections. I delete it. I add in my own content. I'm customizing a book. Up here, I just showed you how to insert an image. We've got a multimedia editor where you can put in the embed code for a YouTube video, a Vimeo video. For all of you math folks who need to write equations, again, this is something we cover in depth in our advanced section, but you'll want to go to the math editor and you can select some things here to build, or you can, if you understand LaTeX coding, you can kind of manipulate that yourself. And these are all things that you can do within the book.
So, Lindsay, maybe this is a good time to pause and go over some best practices when editing collaboratively with others.
Sure, yeah. So a lot of you may be working on a book individually, but as more and more districts are using CK12 books, they're using a bit more of a team philosophy to that. So a couple things that I want to emphasize to you if you start working on a book with a couple of other people is that the number one rule is you never want to have more than one tab open at a time for this book. So imagine, again, this is what not to do. If I duplicated this tab and I had this section open in 2 tabs, I mean, it makes sense that CK12 is going to get really confused. If I'm making edits in this tab, it's probably already super confused. Maybe I should close out of that. I'm going to have both tabs open. And if I'm making edits to both of them and then save is pressed, it doesn't know which version it should be saving, okay? Our system does not work like a Google Doc where multiple people can be typing at the same time, okay? But even further than that, we don't want people in the same section at the same time pressing save, because your changes might be overridden by the other person's save. So that's a good thing to remind myself of, okay, don't have this section open in multiple ones. And then if you're working with a team, you know, a model we see, we were talking about Coeur d'Alene earlier, they made science books for their district, and they started with kind of a generic account, like science, middle school science at Coeur d'Alene, so that the account lived with the district and not with any individual teacher who may retire or may go somewhere else. That was their team account, and one person was really the driver of the account, making sure that as people worked on different sections, that only one person was in the section at a time, and they were pressing save and getting fully out of that section before another person was getting in there. So Katie, do you think that helps them a little bit of just things to consider, you know, as you're working with teams? Is just common sense really of, you know, just one thing in your book open at a time as you press save. Okay, let's see. Let me show you a couple other things. So now that I've made my changes, they were terrible changes, but you have options over here to keep as a draft, finalize your draft, or discard a draft. If I were going to be working on this over a series of several days, I would keep it in draft mode, okay? But unfortunately, I think this is as good as it's going to get for me today on this day. So I'm going to finalize my draft. I'm done with it. This is what I got. So it's asking me if I'm finalizing, and I say finalize. And it is now saving all the changes that I made to this. So here it is. Here's where I typed in objective, my own content. I got rid of that image. And this same resource, since I pressed customize, this is also in my library, okay? I made changes to this read, this book. It is in my library. When I am ready to figure out how I want to get my book in the hands of everybody, you can see this is my book. It's got the demo code at the end. It's in my library. I have options for publishing this book. Katie showed you earlier that you can always take a URL from our site. All of our modalities, everything has a URL. You can take the URL and you can share with the URL, okay? But, you know, our hope is that you've made something that's really worthwhile and that you're wanting to share with other educators, other teachers in your school, other districts. So when you come down here and when you press publish, it does a couple of things. All of a sudden, your book is now searchable on CK12, okay? People can find it. People can look at your resource. You also, at that point, when you publish, you have the option to tell us that you would like to get on that CK12's school page. So I'm hoping you remember, again, from the home page, it's either ck12.org/schools or, again, the schools icon. These are all folks who have selected to publish their books, and then they've also contacted us and say, hey, we want to appear on your school's page, which is awesome. We love it because it helps people like you find more books to adapt. Okay, that's only possible through publishing. Remember that we also have that offline reader. So when you publish your book, you can also send it to your offline reader. And what we mean by that is that with internet connectivity one time, a student can download individual chapters or a whole book at a time that they can then access on a device, on their phone, through the Chromebook reader at home. So that really helps answer some of the questions that you might have about what about students who don't have internet activity. We're trying to help you out with that with the offline reader. Okay, I think hopefully that's another good place to stop. I don't know what kind of questions we have coming in, Katie. Are people overwhelmed or are they hanging with us?
So I think in general, people are doing okay with this. We have a couple questions that came in and maybe some things that you could demo just to clarify a few parts. One person asked, what happens if you delete a section but decide later it's important? Is it easy to reinstate that section? And so maybe you can show us how to go into like the original book and add that chapter or section back into your book. And just a reminder, as you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're either working in edit mode or that you're kind of browsing and adding to books separately. So one of those great best practices, whether it's collaboratively or individually, just make sure you're kind of working in one environment and one tab and you're not in edit while you're trying to add elsewhere. But yeah, maybe Lindsay could show us what that looks like.
Okay, so remember the book that I edited is now in my library. It's mine. I customized it. I gave it a title. But the original book that I was working with still lives in the same spot on CK12. So under the FlexBooks textbooks tab, I was in algebra. I was in middle school math concepts, grade 7. So this is going to be the original book with all of its sections in its entirety. Okay, so I can pick a section. And over here on the left, you're going to see that I have the option to add to FlexBooks textbook. There's probably a couple different ways to do this. This is how I would do this. If I got rid of section 2.4 decimal edition and then later on went, oops, I want that back in. I've navigated to that section and I can say add to FlexBook textbook. And CK12 is looking at my library and it's saying, hey, I see that you just made this demo book. Would you like to add it to that? Would you like to add it to Algebra 1 concepts? Would you like to create a new FlexBook textbook? So remember, you can use our platform for any of the open content that's license compliant that you would like. But we were just talking about adding it to that original, that book that I just customized. So I'm going to select that and say, okay. And it is thinking about it, and it says that this has now, it just flashed on the screen and off, but it has now been added to my FlexBook. So if I come back over here, we're going to see 2.4 added to my FlexBook somewhere. Which section did it go to? It's at the bottom. It's at the bottom. Oh, yeah. Okay, decimal edition. That's what we just added. All right, so it automatically knew that it needed to be the next section where, again, I can come back at any time, press edit on my book. You know, I wasn't done just because I made some edits. Even if you publish, if your final draft, like this book is yours, you can customize it as many times as you want by pressing edit. So I can continue to rearrange all these different sections as I want. And again, it's that easy to add content. Another way that I could have done it was to go to CK12, figure out that I need a decimal edition, search for it. I could find it here. I can add it to my FlexBook. And yeah, it's like, yep, it's already there. So that's a couple different ways to add content. What other questions?
So maybe while you're, showing from your library, you could show them how to start a FlexBook from scratch.
Yes. So library is a great place for you to start when seeing the content that you have, that you've created, which we've got all kinds of stuff in here. But this big create new button, this is powerful as well. So under create new, you have the option to create a modality, a FlexBook textbook, a quiz, which that's something to file away later on for another webinar, another session, that we do have this adaptive practice and these quiz tools. Or standards aligned FlexBook textbook. So I think we were just talking, if I wanted to just create the shell of a book, I can create new, and you're going to go through the same process here. You're going to give it a title, you're going to add some content, you're going to rearrange and delete it. You're off and running with your own FlexBook. But the easiest way to trigger that is through the library.
So we just got this question, what is a modality? And right there, you could see the option to write a modality on there. And if you're within a FlexBook, the modality type that you are writing would be a section of that book. So modality is just a way to learn something. So it could be a video or an interactive or kind of all the different types of learning on our site. So if you were in your library, you could pull up and make, add a new video to our site as well. But if you're within the textbook and you're writing it there, it would come out as a section or what we call a read modality type on that particular topic that you're working off of.
Or I like this visual on modalities. Again, kind of what we think of in-house as modalities are these different ways of learning. Like we just said, reads, videos, activities, study aids, practice. When you guys are writing a modality within a FlexBook, it's probably going to be more text-based. But all of these things can be added to FlexBooks in different ways. Remember, through a unique URL. So if I wanted to give a link to a study aid within my guide, I could open up this within my FlexBook. I can open up this study guide, and it's going to have a unique URL, and I can link anything to my book. So I can copy paste this URL, and I can throw that in my FlexBook and have it at the bottom as a review of like, hey, as you guys are looking at cell transport, check out the study guide. So everything is linkable through the URLs as well as you're navigating.
And we just got a question about students downloading and reading a textbook or a section offline, even if it's not a customized book. So yes, you could download any chapter or full FlexBook. So if you're accessing something within the context of a book, and you can do that in our app, which is available for tablets and phones, or in our Chrome offline reader. And it doesn't matter whether you've done that on kind of customized it beforehand, or you've accessed just a CK12 book or chapter within CK12. And it just downloads kind of by the chapter level or by the whole book level. So I think with that, we don't currently have any open questions there. So I'm going to do a little bit of wrap up right now and give you guys a chance to ask some more questions as you go through. We always stay online at the end of webinars to answer any last questions that have come in. So please continue to ask them if you have any at this point in time. So with that, as we've said throughout this presentation, FlexBooks are just one of the things we offer at the CK12 Foundation. If you'd like to see an overview of all of our resources, you can go to this page, ck12.org/overview, or kind of Lindsay's shown you some of the stuff in the footer. In the footer, it's marked as CK12 resources. And by clicking on that link, you'll see additional information as well as overview videos for our FlexBooks, concept-based learning, adaptive practice, and more. And that's where you can find the video from today, that FlexBook digital textbook video. So for those of you that were looking specifically for that, definitely go check that out there. The next part is our CK12 Cafe. So this is a great way to continue the conversation, to network with other CK12 users and get support from our staff by joining any one of these cafes. From our homepage, you can click on the cafe in kind of your browse options at the top to see our various forums. And I always recommend you join the Jumpstart for Educators Cafe to ask questions, and then keep checking back, because as more and more people join us from a particular state and request a forum for them, we keep adding more state-specific forums. Please keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars on additional topics that might be of interest to you. We have an Everything CK12 webinar on March 1st at 3 o'clock. That one is great if you want to learn especially a little more about our practice and our interactives. That will go into depth, into kind of a broad overview, but cover more beyond FlexBooks than you saw today. And then we have a brand new session coming up called CK12's new Common Core State Standard FlexBooks. That will be in mid-March at 3 o'clock on the 14th. And especially if that is an area that you are interested in, join us to preview some of the upcoming ones and explore the ones that we have already live. And you can register for any of these webinars and see the archived ones, including today's webinar, on our webinars page, ck12.org/webinars. I want to let you know about our certified educator page and our program in general. This past summer, we ran a 4-week program that took the major components of CK12 and went in depth into them, just like we are today with strategies and using CK12's customization tools for our FlexBooks. Now, this coming summer, it will be held in July, and registrations for this will open shortly, so just keep an eye out for them in your inbox as we move forward. Also, if you're interested in getting a jumpstart on your certification, just email jumpstart@ck12.org and we can share any assignments and information you may need, including the assignment for today's webinar if you want to count this particular webinar towards that program. Now, before we end our webinar, or in this case, go back to some questions that I see are coming in, we'll encourage you to answer a short questionnaire to give us feedback on the content and presentation of today's webinar, as we're always looking to improve your experience. I'll share this link and a couple other key links in the chat window as soon as I'm done wrapping up and we go back to questions. So just keep that out, but it's tidyurl.com/CK12webinar17, and we'll send it to you in the follow-up email as well. So with that, if you have no more questions and you're not looking for any links, thank you for joining us today. Please know that we will continue to support you, and our whole team will do that, and we're happy to help you in any way. So just send us an email at any time to support@ck12.org. And don't forget to let your socials know about CK12 and your participation in our webinars. We're on all the socials as CK12 Foundation, or you can hashtag CK12. So that's it for today's core programming. As promised, I'm going to type some links into the chat window so you have access to those, and then we'll continue to stay on for any additional questions you'd like our team to answer. So I think with that, Lindsay's going to switch over to live, and maybe we can start answering some of these questions. So it says, one of these questions is, will you be sending a link to this webinar? My director of finance would like to check it out. So maybe Lindsay can show us where that webinar's page is on CK12, and we can start with that.
All right, so in our footer down here, we have a webinars link. And tomorrow you'll see that we have flipped over. We're going to have a different featured webinar. Here's where you can register for the upcoming webinars. And then we put all of our archived webinars on this page. And this will link directly to YouTube. And that link to this page, the ck12.org/webinars, will be emailed out to all of you guys later on sometime tomorrow. We usually get the videos up within 24 hours or so, but you can always go to CK12 webinars or visit our YouTube page to see what we have in the archives.
So we have a question about giving students the URL for them to access the FlexBook. Can it be put in Google Classroom? So maybe you could show us both how you could share a whole book and even that new little link that we have, because we updated our Google Classroom integration.
All right, let's see here. Let's go to Life Science, and I'm going to go to a FlexBook, and let's pick a human biology book. Our Shareplane, we didn't talk much about this, but our Shareplane, when I press this on any of the modalities, really, here I just press send on the whole book. I have the option to share this on my social media or to Google Classroom. So this would be sharing a whole book, just the URL, just the resource, just so they can access it on our book. We are now sharing, we have a more robust integration with Google Classroom. And when I am on an individual read and I press share on Google Classroom, let's see. What? Hang on, Katie's whispering to me. I'm trying to think of the best way to show this to you. Maybe it's easier to go up to the clipboard over here. Okay, so on a lot of our modalities, you're going to see the option to assign to class. On this particular read, it's on the clipboard. Sometimes, like on our Plix or on our Sims, it's going to be a big orange button at the top. But we didn't talk too much today about assignments. Again, that's something that you guys are going to want to explore further. You might need to view one of our archived webinars or attend an upcoming one. But if I wanted to assign this particular read to my students, I could either do it through CK12 groups or I can do it through Google Classroom. And so when I select Google Classroom, if I had my students ready to go in my Google Classroom, it's going to ask you teachers who have it what hour. You're going to type in some instructions. You're going to give it a due date. And how our integration is working with Google on the textbook, our FlexBooks, is that if I've assigned section 1.1 of human biology to my students, when they go in and they open up that assignment, my grade book is going to show that basically it's completion, that the students opened up that read, and my Google Classroom reports are going to reflect that. So a couple different things there. Again, like the plane on the whole book really is no different from the URL. That's just sharing the link out. But something to kind of put in your back of your mind to think about, to check out our support or help resources. We do have a great help desk. You can access support over here on the right side, help up above. Ask it about Google Classroom, and it would tell you more information about that. You could learn more about how to assign and what our grade passback looks like, depending on if you're using Google Classroom or Schoology or Canvas, other learning management systems.
So Lindsay, we have just a question about the questions associated with this webinar for certification. And if you just email jumpstart@ck12.org, and I'll add that to the chat window right now. So jumpstart@ck12.org. We can share the link to that particular assignment for this webinar so that it can count towards your certification. So feel free to just email us and do that. And then it looks like we have a couple of different questions that are being wrapped up at this point in time. If you're looking for content, we had a couple different questions. If you're looking for content for teachers in other areas, I know Lindsay showed you that nice world map where we have users across the world using our content. Right now, the schools page is specifically for schools within the US because that's where a significant portion of our content is aligned and working from. But you can also search, just like Lindsay's doing, for searching for topics like literature, or you could search for areas and then kind of look at our CK12 content or the community contributed content. So definitely check those out for some pieces. If you're looking to connect with users near you, feel free to email support or contact us, and we can kind of see what we can do to see what other users might be near you that we have relationships with that we might be able to connect you with. So definitely continue to add to that, and we encourage you, if you're building resources, to publish them so that other people like you that are looking for resources from a particular country would be able to find those within CK12 as well. So I'm going to give you just a little bit longer to toss in any last questions that you might have for us, and then we will wrap up today's webinar. So I think with that, you're always welcome to email support@ck12.org if you have any other questions. Continue to join us for upcoming webinars, and we thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.